Barstool Sports did a report on this actress, Drea De Matteo. You might know her from The Sopranos or Sons of Anarchy, and she has reportedly made more in 1 month on OnlyFans than she did in her entirety earnings from Sopranos, which is kind of shocking.
I will point out before we start this segment, as an editor's note, that we are employed by the Tim Pool guy.
Yes, we are employed by Timothy Poole, who pointed out that women are becoming digital hookers. It's not something that you would find empowering if you asked a feminist in the 1960s. So Drea De Matteo made more in 1 month on OnlyFans than on The Sopranos. I guess prostitution on the internet is more lucrative than something that requires a skill set.
The real Hydro PX says, Tim didn't waste 45 minutes talking about this. Yeah, well, we can talk about whatever we want. And if you want to spend 45 minutes
We're
talking
in charge.
About this, we can do that.
We're in charge here. So Tim responded to this headline. He said, women deciding to be hookers instead of having jobs is an arc I didn't expect feminism to take. And this really triggered Drea De Matteo.
Wait, so is that really all that hard to believe? I thought feminists were sex positive and sex work positive for the most part. I know there is such a thing as SWERFs.
Okay, there are different
sex work exclusionary radical feminists.
There are different waves of feminism.
Yes. So many different
I think Tim is trying to point out that first or second wave feminists, they might not think women prostituting themselves is empowering as they do in this day and age. So this response really triggered Drea De Matteo, clearly. Here was her response. Well, I'm glad Timcast clarified that I'm a hooker and he's a C word. Keep saving America with your big influential platform by taking cheap shots at struggling single moms, tough guy. Super cool skater shit, bro. Signed, the hooker of Hollywood. With a bunch of emojis.
Look.
So she's calling herself a struggling single mom, even though she has a net worth of multiple millions of dollars.
Again, I don't know whether you can trust any of that. Online disclosures of people's net worth are oftentimes wrong.
Whatever. And then Tim shot back and said, I don't see why it would be offensive to point out that selling sex on OnlyFans is hooking. What about pointing out that women are quitting their jobs to do sex work is C-word worthy? Y'all should be proud of the work you do. Now, to be fair, I never explicitly called you a hooker, because maybe you just post selfies on OnlyFans or something. But to be fair, I am implicitly calling you and women who use OF hookers. Which I think is perfectly fair, and I do call it digital prostitution for a reason.
Can I just want to ask like a neutral question here, because what it seems like it comes down to is the label behind it, right? So if there's a disconnect on what OnlyFans means to people, right? Like if it's not sex work, what is a label you prefer? I know that they prefer the term model. And then you get into the argument about, so if you're modeling, you're modeling for a company, right? Your sex appeal is for sale for a brand, which would be different than your sex appeal. And I'm saying this because I don't think she posts nudes, right? Okay. So
I have no idea what she posts.
Your sex appeal is on sale for a brand, as opposed to your sex appeal being on sale for your own income are different things. What's different? She also makes it about punching down, which I in this space, I don't really care if you punch up or down on any of those things, but it really feels like it falls back onto a label problem. Many women who do porn, as in not OnlyFans, but like straight up porn, they embrace the labels people call them because they know that they're not going to escape it. It's just going to be something that they're going to be saddled with. But what it comes down to is like when she's talking about it, and then we'll get into Leah McSweeney, who basically says, she's not a hooker, but even if she was, there's nothing wrong with that. And as somebody who's says like consenting adults, I actually don't care. But if you didn't think there was something wrong with it, why would you preface this?
Well, okay, right. The obvious answer is they do think there's something wrong with it. They are ashamed of what they're doing. Women on OnlyFans are offended when people compare it to prostitution and being a hooker.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what it is. And if you're offended by that, you clearly think that there's something shameful about what you're doing. And I looked at her OnlyFans page just now. Her bio says, the Sopranos. And then it says, special just for you, come get to know the Italian stallion. Like, this is just so cheap. This is cheap behavior, and you expect to be treated like a lady. And also, by the way, this woman is in her 50s. Grow up. Like, if you're in your 50s, why are you so easily triggered and intimidated by someone just calling it what it is? Call a spade a spade.
Yep.
She's in her 50s. How young are her kids then?
Well, actually, I listened to an interview that she did where I listened to her on Adam Carolla. She was interviewed and she said that she wouldn't want her daughter to do what she does. She has a teenage daughter who I assume is like 15 years old. And they asked her about her doing OnlyFans and would she want her daughter to do the same, or would she be okay with her daughter doing the same thing that she does? And she was like, no, like she should definitely do something that's more worth her time, like something that would actually require her to have an education and have skills. So clearly, again, you think that there's something wrong with what you're doing.
Right. It's not like Tim put down hookers. He literally just made a statement about hookers. Like, he used the word and she got triggered.
Yeah, and then he also
day.
tweeted, like, no one would call me a conservative. Like, that's an insult to conservatives. He's not moralizing about it. He's just being a realist.
And he was talking more about its arc in feminism than morally saying that it was wrong.
Right, exactly. But they're not capable of hearing logical statements about it. They just want to be affirmed and celebrated no matter what.
In the chat saying that she was going to lose her house and we should leave her alone. Look, she's making her money. That's fine.
I do not care. I do not care what your justification is for prostituting yourself on the internet. Tell me your sob story. I don't care.
It was also okay. So
I do not care.
She also pointed out. She says, "You're right, Tim. America is on fire because of know-it-all a-holes like you, focusing on the most unimportant social issues that divide us. OnlyFans, give me an effing break. Why do you even care?" So that's one of those things. Like, first of all, he's not a conservative, but to many conservatives, it is an important issue.
Here's her full statement.
This is one of those things where me and Mary
Clearly
differ. Like Mary loves to talk about this topic, and it's very important to her, right? I'm one of those people where for whatever reason, I'm like, I enjoy having these conversations and I enjoy talking about it, but it's not the most important issue to me. But to act like it's not an important issue is like a blanket statement saying that nobody cares about it. That's not really fair.
It's
right?
gaslighting.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to do something outrageous and disgusting, and when you react, I'm going to act like you're crazy.
Sketch therapy is right. He says, why are you talking about this? Well, there's a genocide going on in Gaza.
Oh, we have so many big issues to worry
I'm
about.
sure we could find a way to connect.
So here was her full statement. She went to her Instagram stories and wrote this whole essay.
About Tim?
About Tim. She literally said this. Tim Fool. Not only did I not know that the great Tim Pool was an expert on feminism and hookers, I also didn't know he was a part of the hypocrisy problem in America. Here's another mean-spirited, judgmental, holier-than-thou mouthpiece who didn't even bother to research his subject before firing off his disdain. He sounds exactly like the full-blown lefties he lambasts. They should hire him on CNN. You're right, Tim. America is on fire because of know-it-all a-holes like you focusing on the most unimportant social issues that divide us. OnlyFans, give me an effing break. Why do you even care? Bet we have more in common than not, but hey, get your BS bully slander on and exercise your freedom of speech while it's still legal. Bet this BS tweet brought you one step closer to saving America. And while I'm here, let me defend all the women who don't have the luxury to fit into your good girl box. Don't judge any effing person till you've lived their lives and know where they came from. It's ignorant, irresponsible, and lazy. I worked my balls off my whole life and took care of many people with my earnings. I chose to bow out of a divided cancel culture system that didn't work, and guess who the new face of that is? Congrats, Tim. It's you, buddy.
I don't think he said anything about her not deserving to make a living.
Mm-hmm. He literally just said it's ironic that feminists foresaw this future where women would be emancipated from the need to appeal to men in order to survive. Mm-hmm. Even though that was delusional in the first place. And now we're in a culture that celebrates that behavior, celebrates being slavishly devoted to the praise and affection and attention of men. as a form of feminist empowerment. That was his ultimate point, is that it is hypocritical.
Right.
And she just went off into this full rant because, first of all, she has Tim Pool derangement syndrome, but also isn't capable of taking an ounce of criticism for what she does. Especially as someone who is trying to build themselves as a pro-free speech advocate or whatever, who thinks that, you know, we need more speech, not less, and like bad ideas need exposure in order to be refuted.
I think the best option would have been to just have her on the culture war. And talk about this.
That would be interesting.
And you know he would love to do that.
I feel like they would agree on more things than they would disagree
that's
on.
One of the things I was talking about the other day. I said the sad thing is when a lot of people come on the culture war. I think when Rollo Tomasi was here, he said like they end up agreeing on 80% of the issues and on 20% they disagree. Well, people make their bones with that 20%, right? So if you and this guy have 80% in common, but vastly different audiences, it's because that 20% is what really matters to your various audiences. And that's fine. You can talk about the things you disagree with, or maybe you can even just pal around and talk about the things you agree with. But this is a problem for a lot of people, is that like if you can't even have a back and forth about this, because it was such a long response in response to his tweet, like it would have been better to be like, can I come on Culture War and talk to you about this? And I think that they would have ended up getting along better. And I think that he would still be willing to do that now.
Right. She probably has no clue what the culture war is, but this would be a great opportunity.
I would love to have her on PCC. We could reach out. I would be totally, if she'd be willing to come on, like we could sit here and talk about whatever. And we could dunk on Hollywood. We could talk about stupid stories on the internet. And I think we'd all have a lot of fun. And Mary and her would disagree on certain things. And that's what it is. But it's just shocking to me that people don't realize that you have more that you can agree on than disagree. And this is the problem with the big tent, right? That since 2016, it's supposedly a big tent with all of these people from various different parts of what is now considered the right, which means it's, you know, your traditional conservatives, people that are just anti-woke, as much as I hate that term, and all of these things. And you agree on some things, you disagree on others, but it just ends up getting bogged down in a whole lot of back and forth that isn't really all that consequential. I saw that, I think it was Adrian Norman was saying like, look, right now, conservatives are arguing about whether Christ is King is a dog whistle, and the left is hitting Trump with millions of dollars in bills and doing everything to try and take this dude off the ballot because they coalesce around their ideas. It's like nobody on this side can even get past the arguing to do anything. So I don't know how you save anything when nobody can even get together and have a discussion without arguing about everything.
Well, I think that this is an exception because she clearly lashed out. She lashed out because she's defensive about doing OnlyFans.
Yeah.
She doesn't feel good about her decision. And you get just one little push, like one pushback. Mm-hmm. And you have to write a novel in response. It just makes you look unhinged. And then this went even further because one of the Real Housewives got involved, Leah McSweeney. She made a video on Instagram calling out Tim. Do you have the video?
I had it here. Yeah, hold on. Let me.
I leave for 1 week.
She said, Tim Pool can F all the way off for calling my girl Drea a hooker.
I want to have a discussion like, okay, so what's the term that they want to use? I'm fine. You want to give me a term?
No.
You want to change
No,
the
I'm not
term?
going to use your preferred pronouns. I'm not going to use your preferred
language.
Is it this one here? I don't think it's this. I don't have the. No, I don't have the.
It's definitely an article.
We have it somewhere here.
It's
Come on.
Oh, here it is. Here we go.
Tim Pool can all the way off for calling my girl Drea, my queen Drea, a hook. Not that
They
there's
bleep
anything
hooker.
wrong with being a hook, but that's not what she is. And how dare you call her?
Again, I'm asking you. What
I love how she goes, not that there's anything wrong with being a hooker, but how dare you call her? Like, come on.
OnlyFans account. You
Come
this
on.
motherfucker. You don't know where a clitoris is, and you've never made a woman come. And I always thought you were kind of like trying to find the truth, but instead you're just a shill. I am PMSing this week. also subscribe to my OnlyFans. The link is in my bio, and there's amazing content with Drea. Tim, you should actually go subscribe.
Okay, so let me know. Do you think that your OnlyFans subscribers know where the clitoris is? Do you think that they are chads who get a ton of action in their bedrooms? Do you think that your OnlyFans subscribers who are jacking off to you as a digital prostitute are ladies' men who get all of the action, all of the attention from women?
Yep.
Really?
Right.
Really?
Yep.
Some of whom are probably married and doing this behind their wives' backs. And,
Be real.
not the cream of the crop.
I mean, it's just so ironic how she's like, you know, not that there's anything wrong with being a hooker, but how dare you call my friend a hooker?
They subscribe to the belief that you can't insult anyone ever, and that everyone should mind their own business all the time. But in this space, most of what you do is have commentary and talk about current events and things. That's when it falls under punching up or punching down, right? So he's not allowed to do so because he has a larger platform, therefore he can't punch down because she's a single mother, which is a framing.
So he can't even state fact because he has a larger platform.
Again, and the size of the response tells you
But she literally just said
Right.
that she thinks hooker isn't an insult. So why would you be mad that someone called you that?
Yep.
It's like if someone mistook you for, I mean, I don't know, someone thought you were a waitress, but actually you're a hostess. But it's not like that, because obviously these words carry extreme weight with women who are ashamed of how much they're degrading themselves.
Right.
We got a $20 from Nate. The right incessantly bickering about the 20% that separates us is why we lose. There is absolutely a right-wing purity, catfight, cancel culture. We can't fight the left while we fight each other.
It's because there's more inherent individualism on the right.
Thank
and
you.
The left is more willing to fall in line.
Look,
They
I'm
just
saying
reinforce-
if there's any hill to die on for who should represent the conservative right, it should probably not be hookers. Is that a crazy
have
hill
it.
to die on? Am I talking crazy?
Well, I
Am I
love
taking
how-
crazy pills?
Like, Tim is pigeonholed into being a conservative.
He's also not, and he doesn't
And
call
he's
himself
not even
that.
remotely conservative or traditional or any of these things.
Yep. And the size of the response and the vitriol in the response tells you a lot of what you need to know from
Right.
this.
It's like it reminds me of like when girls operate in an echo chamber and they go and talk to their girlfriends about one thing that their boyfriend or their husband did that really wasn't even that bad. Or like if he's like, hey, like I don't want you to hang out with this one guy friend anymore, it's making me a little uncomfortable. And the girl goes and talks to her friends about it and she's like, hey, like is this normal? Like he doesn't want me to hang out with this guy. And the girl's like, oh my gosh, queen, leave him. He's so controlling. It's kind of like this over the top response to something that's very like benign. In my opinion.
Well, clearly, you know, it's not benign to them because they're just like virulently defensive.
I would have. I
Right.
guess I would have had more respect if she just ignored him.
These women don't have self-respect.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't have self-respect because they're doing something that is obviously so degrading to their person.
And very emotionally immature.
Everyone will know that when they're doing it. They will know that on a spiritual level. That is why they lash out. That's why I have had, you know, some of these women on the Whatever podcast lash out at me and gang up on me and try to shame me out of saying that. Because they know I don't even need to tell them that what they're doing is wrong. They already know.
I mean, Mary, let me ask you, like, how many times or have you ever been made fun of or put down because of your faith?
I mean, do you mean online or in person, like real life interactions?
I guess just in general.
like online, plenty.
Yeah. And
In
like,
real
do you-
life, less, obviously.
Right, but do you like lash out and make video responses to every single one?
No.
Right.
Not, I don't even think one.
Right, because it's something that you
Yeah.
are proud of, or it's just kind of like part of your life. It's not something that you're secretly like deep down ashamed of or don't feel like are embarrassed about or something. So I feel like if you kind of have that little shame in the background, that's usually what causes people to lash out about being insulted or made fun of something because they secretly think it's true.
That's what pride parades are. It's like something that you're ashamed of. You have to rationalize it as your identity.
I think a lot of this is also, for me, I guess I try to think more pragmatically, which is like people labeling you as this or that is never going to change. Like I will now be labeled as right wing despite the fact that I'm not right wing, and she's going to be labeled a certain way whether she likes it or not, and you're not going to be able to control whether society sees that as a good or a bad thing. So the best question you can ask yourself is this a good allocation of my time and mental capacity to get in this fight about this? The argument could be made that everybody wins in this. They both get their online engagement. These articles were written. We're talking about it on here. Everybody got what they wanted out of this situation.
Right.
Right?
Sure.
But when people bring this stuff to me, the last thing I'm going to do is just argue with you because I don't have the time of day or the mental capacity to argue with you about what your labeling of my political beliefs based on a podcast about pop culture says about me. I don't really care because I can't change it. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe that's a guy thing.
I think it's more of like people reading this are impressionable. It's not necessarily that Tim is going to change Drea's mind or Drea is going to change Tim's mind, right? That's the idea behind it. Yes, at the same time, there is always that perk whenever something like this happens that you're getting more clout, you're getting more engagement, yada, yada, yada. But that's just kind of like 10% of the entire larger conversation that I think is going on. It's the trickle down effect that people care about. I would like to think.
Yeah, and does I'm sure she gained more than a few subscribers out of this, and my guess would be that Tim doesn't care one way or the other whether she does or not.
Yeah, basically.
It doesn't matter to him. Something like
Right.
that. And in the idea that you can't talk about these things or you can't punch down, like his whole job is to analyze culture. Right now, a big question, a big topic of culture is OnlyFans and its effect on society. And most of the time, what's funny about it is I would think of him as being more analytical in his approach to these things anyways. Sure, he uses Twitter to get like incendiary with some of his tweets to get a reaction. Like he's tweeting things about, he'll tweet one thing and then he'll tweet the opposite thing to see what the reactions are. It's kind of like a mad scientist. But it's like, I just don't get why. It's like you've given him all the power by letting it bother you that bad.
Right. It's not personal.
Yeah.
She's taking it very personal.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.